Hello, this is Kurt Stahura. I'm the Niagara Global Tourism Institute Scholar and Director of Research. We're chatting with you again as part of our Tourism Shorts series. We have a wonderful guest today. With us is the President and CEO of Destination Niagara USA, John Percy. And we're here to chat about how he and his team are marketing one of the great wonders of the world to those that intend to visit. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. What kind words? Wonderful, I guess. It's very nice to be positioned that way. Better than the other way, I guess. Yeah.
Fair enough. The obvious is that we've been living in the midst of a pandemic, although as we approach the season, it's starting to subside a little bit. But I guess the first question is, how has the pandemic, how has that altered the way you and your team have been marketing the area?
Well, let me tell you, it altered it like to a halt. I mean, a year ago, it's hard to believe it's been over a year, but March 17th, we closed our offices, closed our visitor center, the official visitor center downtown, on the roundabout across from the old Hotel Niagara. And everything halted. Our advertising, we went dark. You had to go dark. You could not be deaf or blind to what was taking place in our world. And this wasn't just happening to Niagara Falls or to Western New York. It was happening to the world. My colleagues from all over the world, as yours,
sure,
shut down. And I've never seen I've seen our industry come to a halt during other periods, but very short periods, like 9/11. After 9/11,
right.
I lived through that crisis, and it halted our industry for about a week, less than a week. But we were back up and running. People were nervous, but it took maybe 3 to 4 months, and we were back fully up and running. This has been a year, and one that none of us have a textbook or something
right.
to guide us. So what I learned quickly is the word relevant, or relevancy, and we had to remain relevant to our partners, to this community, to this city, to this county, and show our relevancy in everything we were doing. And we were having meetings after meetings, thank God for Zoom and other, channels that we could use to communicate that have changed our industry as well. But that's
changed
another whole changed the world, right? Yeah. But with staff, what can we do to remain relevant and to remain in the forefront? I wanted Niagara Falls, USA, and our destination to remain in the forefront during this crisis. That didn't mean full advertising. Didn't mean come see us. So we first started we created a five phases last year. Phase 1 was just a very soft approach called Destination of Hope. It was my voice. I've never narrated one of our videos. We decided to use my voice. And it was really just a beautiful video of the Maid of the Mist and a natural rainbow and the falls, and very peaceful. And it was a whole dialogue about, we want you to stay safe. We look forward to brighter days ahead. We look forward to the days when you can return. But right now, stay quarantined, stay safe. So we were doing that sort of reverse, like stay home, but we're here for you. And I've learned through many textbooks and my studies that those companies that remain relevant during a crisis, Coca-Cola and many others have got great case studies, that during a crisis or during a downward period, don't pull back on marketing, full speed ahead at marketing, even if that means that pivotal approach where we want you to stay home, but still showing that Niagara Falls, USA is there and we're relevant and we're in the forefront. So it keeps Niagara Falls, USA in their minds,
sure,
and in their mindset. And so that was very important. So there were 5 phases, and then eventually led up to wide open spaces, now open for adventure. So as we kept watching the timeline, attractions could open up early July, late June, early July last year. So we really went on this approach that we have a ton of wide open spaces. We knew the consumer research was that people were afraid to travel. They didn't want to feel unsafe. So we just really positioned that we had a lot of wide open spaces, a very natural destination, a very open and natural destination to come enjoy. We also created a program called Unified in Safety. We wanted to show unification, or that we were unified as an industry here, and as a city, and as a community, and as a destination to welcome you. Because again, people were really afraid to travel because of the safety concerns. So we ended up having not certainly a very poor summer, but better than what we anticipated.
Sure. Great.
And so that was, phased in approach, and we still continue with that wide open spaces sort of theme, because people still feel, concerned about traveling or hesitant.
Okay.
And also, and sorry,
No,
we
ahead.
also really, from doing worldwide marketing to a 4-hour circle, talk about pivoting to where everything changed. And we also don't advertise, Kurt, in the summertime here. We don't have to. We advertise trying to drive traffic at other periods of where we need more traffic.
Sure.
Summertime, we're out there, but we are out there a lot less. Well, last July and August, I told Julie, our VP of marketing, to full speed ahead, spend as many dollars as we can in July and August. So that was a totally different. So you had to truly pivot. I mean, I hate that word from last year, but that's what we all had to do, was pivot and find new ways to attract customers and stay in the forefront.
Great. And this aligns with some of our previous tourism shorts where we talked about some of the trends where we would likely be throwing things in the metaphoric station wagon and driving as old,
So
as
true.
families used
Right.
to, as opposed
Right.
to jumping
We're
on
trying to
airplanes.
attract that drive customer. And within, which we're very lucky positioning here from the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic regions, within, 4 to 8 hours, you have millions in a population base that you can draw from, which is really a plus, an advantage for us here in Niagara Falls, USA.
Well, speaking about that in particular, as you look to the future, the next phase, as it were, is your marketing changing to start targeting some of the aforementioned families and maybe beyond the 4-hour radius?
We are. So we have moved. I said last year it's going to be a slow process, but we'll go from 4 hours to 6 hours to 8 hours to 12 hours and continue to grow. So we are now at an 8-hour radius circle for advertising and promotion. Still drive traffic primarily. Flights and airlines are starting to increase, and you're starting to see some not normalcy, but a little return to where people are more comfortable flying, especially with vaccinations. There's just so many positive signs. So our advertising campaigns have even become a little more aggressive than last year, where last year was like a very soft approach, and now a little more aggressive, where now they're called Feel Free and Return to Real. So those are the two new campaigns that we just initiated in March.
Okay.
That again still talk about that wide open spaces. You want to, but it's getting the people's mindset to feel free to travel. And if you're feeling free, come and accelerate that experience here. Come experience Niagara Falls and check it off your bucket list.
Sure.
And everything to that like. But it has become a little more aggressive. Still not fully aggressive in our marketing, because again, we cannot be deaf to what's happening. There are still concerns, but just recently, Longwoods International posted, they do every 2 weeks consumer sentiment surveys, research, and so it's very important we hear from the consumer and what's in their mindset,
Right.
what's in their psyche, very important. It got as low as 57% in December, this past December, when we saw spikes in November, December. 57% of people are only willing to travel within the next 6 to 12 months. That number has now risen to 88%. So that consumer psyche is becoming more comfortable in their thought process, or even their desire to travel, or even their conversion to travel where they're actually booking.
Good.
So a lot has changed, and that's all from vaccination schedules
Sure.
and everything else. We have such positive signs this year, thank goodness.
Good. What has been the greatest challenge through this entire process? I'm sure that there could be a few of them.
Kurt, we could be here all day.
Yeah.
I think, I've said this to people. I'm partially grateful for, I think for the challenge of COVID, that it it shook me to my core. It shook me and this organization to realize that we had to stop. We had to halt. We had to, stop and pivot and realize that we could not do what we were doing the way we were doing it, and we had to find new ways to market, new ways to become relevant, new ways to challenge ourselves, challenge our partners, but also be that voice. We were so used to promotion and going to trade shows and traveling the world and marketing Niagara Falls that it changed, completely overnight. We're in our homes, marketing. I have my teams all working in their homes, and we're speaking virtually and working virtually. And I'm so proud of my team, our team, because they were so dedicated and so spot on as to how we were moving forward and guiding the process. And our team members at our ad agencies that we work with, we have a creative agency here in Buffalo, Fourth Idea, Casual Astronaut, our digital agency out of Phoenix. They couldn't have been better partners, and they were right on board with us to help us to market in an unprecedented time. So that challenge for me is stop and listen and again trying to remain relevant. I kept saying to the team, they got sick of that, but we've got to remain relevant, relevant to our consumers, relevant to our stakeholders here that I answer to our partners, to everything else, that they could use us and look to us as being the leader in our industry, and that's what I'm here to do. So
Great. Interesting offshoot of that. Whenever there are times of duress, or whether it be a pandemic or even personal situations, sometimes you say, this is not good, but by rethinking, sometimes it provides opportunities that you hadn't considered before, and you come out looking different on the back end. Have you witnessed any change in your thinking relative to possibilities or opportunities in the future?
Very much. I think what you had said a challenge, but I think one of the positive attributes for all of us this past year is that we got to stop and listen and rethink and explore our own, lives, whether the personal or professional.
Right.
Some were forced to do that. I'm grateful I wasn't forced to have to rethink my life professionally or whatever, that I was able to hold on to this ambassadorship that I've been given. Anytime I have time to really think, it gives me opportunities to think how we can grow and find these silver linings, find the opportunities through this crisis to grow. And there's some things that we're working on that over the next few months, next 6 months, I hopefully be back in this seat and we'll be discussing even bigger and greater things for us.
Good.
And so there have been some things that have been presented to me and this organization that are going to become very exciting. So it was great to have the time to rethink and look at those opportunities. Because if I was on that regular schedule, crazy schedule that I kept before, I wouldn't have been able to stop and think about those growth opportunities.
Right. And
so
reflection.
Reflection is wonderful. Yeah.
Are there considerations? Obviously, the border is closed right now, and you alluded to the fact that you were marketing to people within a 4-hour radius on the U.S. side originally, and then that ring will expand and expand. Are there plans for re-engaging traditional markets when the border does open?
It does. I mean, we miss our, we always say, you've been here to know that Canada, it's our dear friends and neighbors and family to the north. It's not an international border. They're not international visitors, even though on research papers and everything else,
Sure.
or research modules, they are considered an international market. But us here, all my friends around the country say, "Oh, you're so great to be close to an international market." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Oh, Canada, that's right. But we don't view it. We truly view it as like a neighborhood separated by a bridge,
Sure.
and a gorge, and those wonderful neighbors and family and friends to the north and to the west of us here, they they're so vital to our economy here on a daily basis. So on that aspect, here in Niagara Falls and Niagara County, they shop. We all know that. They all drive us crazy, because they'll fill up our parking lots
Right.
and everything else. I think we've learned how vital they are and how good they are to our
No
economy.
question.
That we don't shoo them away or treat them poorly. Two is dining. So the restaurateurs here are missing that element. Concerts at Art Park,
Right.
and staying in our hotels. It's usually in that order: is shop, dine, stay. So all those elements have been impacted negatively, for sure, by that loss of revenue. We are the only glimpse of research that I hold on to, and I need more with the Canadian market, is VisaView. VisaView is a company that gives you research on Visa credit cards for international markets and what they spend in your destination. Canada, just on the Visa card alone, this doesn't include other forms of payment, cash or others, but they spent $59 million on goods and services here in the county alone in 2019. That's a lot. That's just one form of payment. So that's a large chunk of revenue that's lost here to our retailers and our restaurateurs and so forth. And so that's it. And in fact, that didn't include restaurants. That was just really goods that they're purchasing in the malls and our retailers. So we miss them. So the double-edged sword that you and I were speaking about earlier is, on the plus side during this, is the border closed. So of course we lose visitors to our partners and friends across the border to stay in Niagara Falls, Canada, especially when the exchange rate is more favorable for an American visitor to go over there and get
Sure.
a 30% discount or 25, whatever it may be, depending on the exchange rate. And it's hard to compete with that, because if people can save, they want to save.
Sure.
So with that border closed, we've been able to capture that customer and get them to stay on the U.S. side and recognize the U.S. side. More so even with motor coach business, where they can't get a motor coach across and they're calling us and they still want to bring their group to Niagara Falls. They can still get to Niagara Falls. So we're able to really convert that customer, if you will, that client that has for years told us, no, we stay on the Canadian side.
Right.
We can convert them into a customer on the U.S. side. So there's that double-edged sword. We miss them, we miss their dollars, but on the other hand, we are enjoying this time to maybe convert some customers.
Great. Speaking of people who are staying here, are there ways that we can improve or change the way in which we engage in the tourists that are in town? Are there?
Always.
Uh-huh.
I think I think that's our biggest challenge, yet our biggest opportunity.
Sure.
Always, I always say that, is when they're in town, if they have not done a lot of research, if they've not tapped into the blogs that we do or the content that we've developed to showcase all the products that Western New York has to offer, the wonderful assets, the cultural gems that we possess, everything of the like, to help increase or improve their experience here. If they come here to see the falls, we have lost an opportunity to keep them for an extended stay.
Sure.
Because they're not aware of Old Fort Niagara, or going to pick fruit on one of the farms, or going to one of the wineries, going to Lockport Locks, going to Herschel Carousel Museum in North Tonawanda. There's so many wonderful little gems that are further away from this visual eyesight of their, when they're here in downtown Niagara Falls. So I always try to challenge my staff is, how do we get to them? How do they know that when they're here that there's so much more? Is it simply as ambassadors on the street? Is it better technology? Can we tap into them, via an app or something that springs up on their phone saying, welcome to Niagara Falls? Did you know? And they click on that or whatever it may be.
Sure.
Our visitor center, where most destinations are having less traffic in their visitor centers, our visitor center, the official one that we built 11 years ago, improves year after year
Right.
and continues to grow. So that's just one avenue that we have to tap into that customer and talk to them one-on-one and get them excited about the other products and experiences that they can have while they're in the destination.
Good.
But I think there's many ways that we need to explore to expand our reach into that customer's mind, into their hands or into their devices, whatever it may be. We're trying to stay afloat and just not really trying to keep up with technology and make sure that we have the best.
Sure.
For sure. So
Great. So the final question.
yeah.
The pattern's starting to revert back to elements that suggest normalcy. And here we are in April.
Mm-hmm.
Numbers are starting to pick up,
Mhm.
and the light at the end of the tunnel is
Very long tunnel.
Yeah, a very long tunnel,
Yeah.
but we're seeing it.
Mm-hmm. I can breathe a sigh of relief. I'll tell you, it's been a year of many sleepless nights and worried about an industry. I'm excited about the glimmers of hope with the vaccination schedules and the
Mhm.
expediency of that and the records that the U.S. is setting compared to our partners to the north, even
Right.
Canada
Yeah.
and other countries. One thing I didn't talk about is there's also U.S. customers that travel abroad, and they're not able to do that right now. So we're also trying to tap into that audience
Perfect.
so that while you can't get to Rome or Paris or London or whatever it may be, you can get there, but it's sometimes too difficult right now or going through many hoops to get there. That why not still travel domestically and take care of that list that you've always wanted to see? So I think there's a lot of upside. I think there's like I think the number is 79 or 80 million U.S. residents travel abroad in a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big customer base.
Sure
you know.
is.
So if those people are staying, do we double? It's only 71 million Americans take domestic trips. The number is higher on outbound of U.S.
Mm-hmm.
So now are there some crossover there? But that could be double the amount of people that travel in the U.S.
Sure.
and that we can tap into. So
And we
the
know
time is great.
Yeah,
So,
and we know that national parks are being visited more
Very
than
much.
ever before.
Mhm.
State parks,
very much.
camping equipment, bike
Oh,
equipment,
yeah.
kayaks, canoes.
Right.
And
It's
I think
amazing. You can't get a bicycle.
That's
You
right.
can't, and we have some great outdoor product to match up to that. If you have a new kayak, you have a new boat, you have a new camper, we're looking at all those audiences
Great.
and how we tap into them. Because I know a camping place near me where I live, they're doing 20 to 30 deliveries a day.
Wow.
They can't keep up. I mean, those are extraordinary numbers. Now, give it 3 years, you'll get a great deal on a camper because people will get tired of it. We're very habitual creatures, but we also get very tired of things as well. But in the meantime, I think people are looking at how they can have that wholesome experience and outdoor experience.
Right.
And really, we have we are perfectly positioned. Our geography, our topography, everything is perfectly positioned to tap into that mindset of that customer.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, this was enjoyable, and thank you so much for coming over
It was.
here. It's always neat to hear about how ideas are formulated, and again, how sometimes a difficult situation can yield opportunity.
Very much.
To your point.
Very much. I think it's a scary time. It's been a scary time for everybody. But also, I think if we don't come out of this different, what was the purpose?
Right.
We had to come out of this differently.
Right.
We have to look at things differently. We have to treasure things differently.
Yeah.
And it's travel. I think the biggest industry to get hit and get hit hardest is travel
Mhm.
first. But the first industry to rebound
No
is
question.
travel.
No
So, we'll be that first to rebound because the pent-up demand is huge.
Yeah, no question.
Huge. It's just bubbling. Like it's almost going to be floodgates open, explosion of people that want to travel.
no question. Well, it sounds like we'll have a return visit, because as your phases unveil themselves and as as some of your projects that are coming to the forefront, we'd love to have you back on and hear
Thank
some
you.
of those things.
Be a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much. Again, this is Dr. Kurt Stahura from Niagara University and TREC and the Global Tourism Institute, which sits on our international border. Thanks for having us, and if you have questions, please do send them in, and we can get that information back to you. Thank you so much.